Now, in the latest coming in, the US Indo-Pacific Command has released an official statement stating, and I quote, "We are aware of the missile launches and are consulting closely with our allies and partners. Based on current assessments, this event does not pose an immediate threat to US personnel or territory or to our allies. The United States remains committed to the defense of the US homeland and our allies in the region." Karori Singh, Foreign Affairs expert, joins us on the broadcast. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Of course, we're taking a look at all of these developments coming in now. The US Pacific Command has also spoken about certain missile strikes that were reportedly, they were the targets of, but has said that it does not pose any imminent threat to the US. How do you think all of these latest developments, what sort of an implication are they going to have for the global, the world order? Because of course there is going to be some back and forth. We are going to see formal charges being brought against Maduro shortly as well. What sort of an implication do you think this will have? And of course, not even speaking of the legality of the US action.
You see, there are three dimensions, three aspects we can understand this problem. First, the way US strikes Venezuela, how it can be justified. This is the first one. Second, what's the response of global community? And third, what's the way ahead? If we see the US strike, there are various dimensions. First is the legal dimension. And Maduro was indicted in 2020. And at that point of time, 15 million dollar were as bounty were announced that anybody gives information and helps to arrest Maduro, he will get $15 million. Later on, January last year, it was increased up to 25 million, and then in August it was $50 million. So how the US strike, whether there was some involvement from the inside, government of Maduro, so it will be clear when somebody gets the $50 million if it comes to the public at all. So the legalistic aspect is then now the Attorney General Bondi has made it clear that the US justice, US soil and US court. So it will be dealt in the US court, whereas Maduro's case is already under investigation in International Criminal Court. So the International Criminal Court is already investigating, and the national courts and national law of the United States, how it is appropriate, that is the question. The second thing that is also again legalistic is, can Trump as president can take this action without the permission from the Congress? So there are protests in the United States. Even in New York, there was the big rally yesterday. They are not in favor of Maduro, but the way Trump took the action, America took the action, it is being protested. The second thing is the ideological. Ideologically, Venezuela is a socialist country. America represents the capitalist ideology. So naturally, Venezuela was having close relations with China and Russia. China and Russia were getting hold in the Latin American countries where US considers Latin America as its backyard under Monroe Doctrine, which is being reinforced these days. So the ideological factor is the second one. The third factor is the resources. Venezuela has huge oil resources, and US wants to get hold of it. The fourth important is how US can assert its hegemony, its unipolarity, that is again being challenged. Because after the dismantling of USSR, there was practically a unipolar world order. And now China, Russia, they are asserting their influence. In the Eurasian region, Russia is having its influence in Asia. China is asserting its influence not only in Asia, even in African countries. So the US hegemony is being challenged. So the US tried to reassert its hegemony at the influence, at least in its backyard, that is the Latin American countries. Now the second one is the global response. There are three sets of responses. There's an outright condemnation from Russia to Mexico, including China, Iran, and so many other countries. So there is a wide-scale outright condemnation of U.S. action. The second set is Argentina and UK. Argentina has outrightly supported United States action, whereas British response is somewhat calculated. The Starmer told that we are trying to know the facts and we will consult our allies and then we'll take the action, respond it. So Starmer are not in favor of American action. It means the American hegemony, American domination is being challenged. So the final, what can be the way ahead? Will the US will accept its decline voluntarily, or US will further assert in different parts of the world? Because this is not only the action. About 36 years back, there was action in Panama, then 22 years back in Iraq. So the US has some kind of that tendency to regime change. And then what can be the change in Venezuela? I don't think that Maria, the Nobel Peace winner, the leader of opposition, will get the power at this point of time. I personally feel there is some dissension some dissension in Maduro government. So from the within Maduro government, Maduro's allies and friends, somebody may take over the reign of Venezuela, and that can be puppet of United States. So the US can get hold of the Venezuelan resources. At the same time, that can be ideologically dismantled, which is a socialist ideology, and the new kind of administration, new kind of political system may be installed in Venezuela, and it can be lesson for other countries like Colombia, and Nicaragua, and other countries are in the Latin American part of the world. So
Yes.
the situation is very complex, how the things will move. But certainly US will assert its position not only in Latin America, but other parts of the world. But it will encourage the Chinese action in Taiwan if China takes action because China considered Taiwan as its province. So how the US will be having moral authority to condemn
Yes,
the
sir.
China or the Russian
Absolutely.
action? So there are so many moral questions as well. And the Trump himself told about a few days back that UN is doing nothing. The US is doing the UN job, that is to establish the peace. But this is not the way to establish the peace. So the US having the self to
Absolutely.
declare the UN role to establish the peace. So in this way, UN is becoming irrelevant. So then there may be the UN Security Council meeting, maybe today or tomorrow, and let us see how the Security Council comes up. Definitely, US will cast the veto. Maybe the France and Britain may stand with the United States, but let us see how the debate in Security Council takes place. That's all. Thank you
Absolutely,
all.
sir. Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us with your perspective. I would in fact like to thank all of our guests for joining us and speaking about the big story. But for now, viewers, we'll slip into a very short break. We'll be right back.